Elective service at sss.gov. It only takes a minute, and it's the law.
News and Talk 1380, WAOK. Call us at 404-892-2703 on News and Talk 1380, WAOK.
Welcome back to the Mo Ivory Show here on News and Talk 1380 WAOK. I hope you're having a good Tuesday morning. It's 10:21, and today I decided that we were going to talk about business and entrepreneurship because in my regular job at CBS as political and community specialist, I meet a lot of people and I come across some great folks. And I met Tarji Carter, who works for Focus Brands, a couple of months ago. And we just started having a conversation. And she started talking about her boss and how phenomenal she was. And you know that I'm always going to talk about phenomenal women on the Mo Ivory Show. And so I said, well, I want to have her in. And we are going to talk about entrepreneurship, business opportunities, things that we always talk about. And I'm glad to bring to the microphone and to the Mo Ivory Show Kat Cole, who is the president of Cinnabon. What a wonderful brand to be the president of.
Yes, it is
How are
disturbingly delicious. I'm fantastic.
It's always like such a treat when you go, to the airport or any of the malls and you see Cinnabon and you think like, should I? Should? And then you get in line and you do. So it never disappoints. In her role as president, Kat is responsible for repositioning a plan that began to upgrade 770 units of Cinnabon and expand the brand to an expanded menu and things like that. But before we get into that, I want to talk about your rise in how you become the president of Cinnabon. You have such an interesting story. I know that at a very young age, you began working at Hooters. And, people think Hooters, it comes to mind, the girls, the outfits or whatever. Tell me about how you started at Hooters and how you ended up becoming the vice president of training and development at Hooters.
Sure. So it's interesting. My whole background is non-traditional. I grew up in a single-family home, working since I was 15 to help support the family, and I'm the oldest of 3 girls, so we were a house of 4 very independent women. And I started working in retail, and restaurants have a pretty low barrier to entry. And so young folks who just want to work hard and make money, restaurants are a really great option. And so I was recruited to work at Hooters, but I wasn't old enough to serve alcohol, which they have there. So I became a hostess.
So how old were you?
I was 16 when I was recruited.
Oh, my gosh. Okay.
Yeah, I was 16, and then I became a hostess as soon as I turned 17. And I was in high school, so I was fairly popular.
You were 17 and working at Hooters in high school.
Exactly.
Everybody was your friend.
Yes. And, my parents were pretty cool about it, or my mom was pretty cool about it. She just said, if it's all work is honest work, and if you're doing the right thing, you're taking care of guests, you're learning skills, and you're making money for the family, then I support it. And she was fantastic. She supported, she didn't judge. And by the time I was 18, I was old enough to serve alcohol. And so I became an actual server there. So I put on those orange shorts and was slinging wings and graduated high school, started college, was an engineering major. And by the time I was 19, I had been offered a position by Hooters Corporate, which was based here in Atlanta. I was in Jacksonville, Florida, to travel to Sydney, Australia to open up the first restaurant in Australia.
And you were 19 years old.
I was 19.
Did you even have a passport?
Nope.
So you got an opportunity to go open a Hooters restaurant at 19 years old for the corporate body, and you didn't even, and you had to get a passport for the first time to do it.
I had never been on a plane.
Unbelievable.
I mean, my background is best described as Jerry Springer. I had been on no type of mass transportation at all. I had never been on a train, a plane. The most I had was public transportation, a school bus, and then the car eventually that I drove, my little clunker.
Let me ask you this. Between 16 and 19, when you started at Hooters and then you got that opportunity to go overseas, what do you think it was about you that made you stand out from everybody else, and that you had an ethic a work ethic that somebody saw and said, it's her?
I think part of it is that I always had this subconscious desire to prove that I was not where I came from, to never forget where I came from, but to prove I wasn't like them, that I was different, that I could do more. And so whether it was showing up earlier, staying later, taking odd jobs, cleaning toilets. When the cooks quit, I'd go work in the kitchen. When the manager quit, I'd stay late and run the shift because I just believed I could be more. I didn't know exactly what that looked like because I hadn't had true business leaders modeled in my youth.
Sure.
So part of it was just that hunger to prove something. I think the other part was I saw my mom working 3 jobs. She fed our family on $10 a week for 3 years. I saw her doing incredible things. Even when I was young, I knew it was incredible. So
Yeah.
those two things
Wow.
together probably gave me that drive to just want to do anything that I could, because every opportunity, even if it was literally to go cook wings because the cooks quit, was something to me that was a way to get a step up.
Wow. So then 19, you go to Australia, you
Yep.
open up a Hooters restaurant, and then what happens from there?
So I stayed there for 40 days, changed my life. You know, I'm
Wow.
a 19-year-old overseas for the first time. And
With an expense account.
Yeah,
Yeah, that
exactly,
works. Yeah.
Exactly. And so I came back, and a few weeks later, they said, "You speak enough Spanish to be dangerous. We want you to go to Mexico City and open the first Hooters there." And then a month later, we want you to go to Buenos Aires and open the first Hooters in South America. And so after about 5 or 6 countries, eventually my professors in college said, "You're failing." Of course I was. I was never there.
Sure. You were traveling the world.
Yep. And so I am a college dropout.
Wow.
So I quit. I had a fork in the road to either follow my passion, which was international business at this point, restaurant operations, helping new franchisees begin their own businesses overseas, or pursue my engineering degree. And much to my mother's dismay, as you can imagine, because I was the first of anyone
To have a
in
shot.
either side of the family to have a shot.
Right.
I left and I packed my bags and I moved to Atlanta when I was 20 for a corporate job to oversee training and development for the global corporation.
That is I'm so proud of you. That is unbelievable at 20 years old, because to have the maturity to even be able to process that type of experience, and then to be able to say you couldn't even drink.
Couldn't drink and couldn't rent a car.
So you were running the operations for Hooters, a well-known drinking place that you could not even have a drink at. That is
Exactly.
a phenomenal experience. So then after you're 20 years old and now you come to Atlanta and you're working in corporate and you're just working your way all the way up.
Yeah, working my way up. Crazy things happened in the corporation. We bought an airline. We sold an airline. We were fully vertically integrated as a business. So we owned our supply chain, our manufacturing, our distribution. And I had an opportunity to learn. I was lucky. I tell people often Hooters at that time was growing like a weed. Ultimately, when I left, we were in 30 countries at $1 billion in revenue. But I was fortunate in that we were still fairly unsophisticated. And someone my age would have never had the chances that I did if we were a big, giant Coca-Cola, a large
Right.
corporation.
Sure.
So that's good and bad. It certainly worked out well for me. And then a few years into some promotions, I realized I needed to get some learning and mentorship from people outside of the company. And I joined an organization called the Women's Food Service Forum.
Okay.
And it was a collection of women and men, thousands of them, in much higher positions than I was, who had a common goal of elevating women leaders. Simply stated, elevating women leaders. And I got the access and the mentorship that I needed to give me perspective, confidence, and knowledge that I never would have had otherwise. And so when those promotions came up and when the tough times came up, I had other people would describe it as maturity, but I had a perspective that I couldn't have had without the great mentorship of others.
Wow, this is an amazing story. I want to talk to you when we come back about your creating the diversity and inclusion training at Hooters, because obviously I want to talk about that brand and what people's perception is of women. And I'm sure as a young woman, you must have looked around and said, okay, I need to do something, and I really want to talk about that. It's the Mo Ivory Show here on News and Talk 1380 WAOK. We're talking with Kat Cole, who is the president of Cinnabon. We're talking about her early career in Hooters right now, and we're going to jump to how she became the president of a brand we all know and love, Cinnabon. And we're going to take your questions. We're going to just talk about business and entrepreneurship. This is just a wonderful conversation here on the Mo Ivory Show. 404-892-2703. It's News and Talk 1380 WAOK, and we'll be back.